Maybe the question we should ask, I guess, is how has the capitalist system evolved over time? Capitalism has been, and will continue to be defined by a consistent pattern. And that is capital accumulation with manifestations like crisis, polarization, wars, resentment, and so on. As with any system, whether that be economic, political, chemical, physical, or biological, it will continue to exist in a perpetual state of growth, development, transformation, ultimately demise. And then after death, some new form will emerge again. I think this is the situation with capitalism. It's a process, it's a cycle. That reminds me, in December of 2015, former Federal Reserve Chair and the current Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, was asked that what might likely bring the economic expansion to an end. And her response was simple. She said, it is a myth that expansions die of old age. So for context here, in the subfield of survival analysis, when you look at positive duration dependence, it explains that due to a snowballing effect, the longer an expansion is, or a contraction, whichever is applicable, the higher is the probability that it will end. So, Yellen's response was obviously a departure from what duration models tell us. Recently too, I was engaging a Norwegian economist, Martin Sandbo. We were talking about his new book, The Economics of Belonging. And in the book, he talks about what happened in the immediate aftermath of World War II, the prosperity with many jobs that offered adequate incomes, status, and dignity. Those willing to work could be rewarded with material comfort, with security, and social respect. You saw income gaps between social classes and geographical regions vanishing, robust middle class. And then suddenly, those things were not anymore. You suddenly started to see large swaths, of the population that feel left behind by economic opportunities that are being taken advantage of by the elite. I go back again to the standard growth model. You can explain how capitalism contributes to improvements in living standards by various combinations of labor, capital, technology. And maybe in today's environment, you talk about economies of scale. And that brings me to one inherent issue with the capitalist system. And that is that in order to achieve scale economy, then access to markets and raw materials must be certain. Because this is key. This is key for seamless growth and distribution. And this explains why empires often clash, because of the requirement of a seamless imperial expansion possibility. So all in all, I think capitalism will always survive. You think of it in terms of business cycles and in terms of the pitfalls of capitalism, When you talk about the pitfalls of capitalism, they are well documented. As I have said earlier, you've seen different issues, different strands, falls and rises. But then it is what it is. We must improve on it. there's still no alternative to capitalism. We can refine it, we can improve on it. Paul Krugman, once said that capitalism can run, even flourish in a society of selfish cynics. But he said a non-market economy cannot. He alluded to how, and we've all seen communism, why did he not provide a reason for existence? Why did it crash? Paul Krugman says maybe it could only work under a crisis or something like that. So the point here is that capitalism has its pitfalls, but it is still the basis for incentives, private property, and what have you. A closely related theme or a good example here is infrastructure. Let's pause for a second and look at infrastructure. Infrastructure has traditionally been defined in terms of roads, bridges, airports, water mains, public transit, and power lines. But you find that in the current environment, the debate is changing fast. The care economy, care infrastructure is now on the front burner of the policy debate. And the idea is simple. It's pretty much saying that investment in care infrastructure, are not just about childcare and families, but that they are the very fabric for building a robust and sustainable economic system. You don't find that anywhere in the neoclassical growth model. Where you say growth is all about capital and labor and technology and what have you. But increasingly now, the debate is about ensuring that care for children, for elderly, all of those people, should be accounted for when you look at the broader theme of infrastructure. That's an example of how capitalism can be refined, how a lot of the assumptions and coherent systems that we've been working on can be improved upon. And I also think that it is important to mention that over time, more and more hybrids of capitalism are emerging. When you see how states and markets, are having complementary roles in entrepreneurial capitalism. Even in the United States, the very epicenter of capitalism, you still see state interventions in some key sectors. The same in Canada, when you think about the healthcare model in Canada, which is adjudged to be a global model, that various jurisdictions even are praised and, kind things about. The same thing in China and Europe. Even though you may say that the Chinese model is heavily state dependent, but the fact is that they have succeeded in moving more than 850 million people out of extreme poverty. That is profound. They are obviously doing something right. Is it a perfect model? No. But do they have results? Yes. Can they improve on it? Yes. Of course, some of these, again, come with different nomenclatures. When you talk about the hybrid model, some talk about industrial policy, impact investing, public-private partnerships. And even at the regional level, you see how governments continue to incentivize the private sector. They incentivize private sector investment in strategic industries through innovative public-private partnerships to ensure that good jobs are created and pathways are provided for residents, from a broad spectrum of society to participate and be part of the economy. And that again takes me to the notion of inclusive growth, which is about taking an holistic view about the economy. It is not enough to increase GDP, but you have to think about what does it mean for individuals, for households, what does it mean for marginalized populations? What does it mean, for the quality of life, for happiness? What does it mean for the environment? You're talking about the clean energy transition, that's a big debate. You look at the whole notion of the energy trilemma, trying to resolve the challenges around affordability, and environmental sustainability, and pricing and all of that. So at the end of the day, there is an opportunity to move the needle. Economic science, again, is that framework, is that platform that brings all of the pieces to the table and then helps us to abstract from all of the complexities and then filter what you think is important to help you make sense of the noise. And then upon doing that, you can increase the level of complexity, do a more nuanced analysis, and based off of that, pragmatic solutions can then be devised. I will leave it at that. That again seems like a pretty long question, but I hope it does justice to the question